Most people don't fail because they're weak, broken, or incapable. They fail because they have been living on emotional autopilot, reacting instead of deciding, drifting instead of commanding, waiting instead of claiming. And you already know this because every time you're alone with your thoughts, you feel that quiet tension in your chest that says, this is not who I'm supposed to be. And that feeling isn't guilt or shame. It's potential demanding expression. It's the future version of you knocking harder every day while the present version keeps pretending tomorrow is guaranteed. And here's the truth most people never want to hear. Nothing changes until you do. Not your income, not your confidence, not your discipline, not your relationships, not your self-respect, because life does not reward intention. It rewards identity. And right now your habits are voting every single day for the person you're becoming, whether you like it or not, whether you're conscious of it or not. And the most dangerous thing in the world isn't failure. It's comfort that slowly convinces you to settle. Comfort that whispers later. Comfort that numbs your urgency. Comfort that makes average feel safe, because comfort never shouts. It seduces. And by the time you realize it's stolen years from your life, you're already wondering where your hunger went, where your fire went, where that version of you who used to dream big disappeared to. But listen to me closely. That person is not gone. They are buried under excuses, under distractions, under the false belief that motivation comes first, when in reality, motivation is a consequence of movement, not a prerequisite. And the moment you stop waiting to feel ready and start acting like the person you respect, your nervous system rewires, your standards rise, and your energy changes. Because power doesn't come from thinking. It comes from doing the hard thing when every part of you wants to retreat. And most people never build confidence because they keep trying to feel confident before taking action. When confidence is built after you survive discomfort, after you keep promises to yourself, after you do what you said you'd do long after the emotional high is gone. And understand this, your mind will always try to protect the familiar even when the familiar is destroying you, which is why growth feels threatening at first, because the old version of you is fighting for survival, but that doesn't mean you're in danger. It means you're evolving, and evolution is uncomfortable by design, because if change were easy, everyone would be elite, everyone would be disciplined, everyone would be fulfilled, but they're not. And you know why? Because they keep negotiating with themselves. And every negotiation weakens self-trust, every excuse lowers standards, every delay reinforces the identity of someone who waits instead of leads. And leadership always starts internally before it ever shows up externally, because the moment you decide this is who I am now, your behavior must follow, and this is where most people collapse. They want new results with old identities, new outcomes with old routines, new confidence with old excuses. And it doesn't work that way, because you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. And if your system is built around convenience, distraction, and emotional decision-making, you'll keep repeating the same year over and over while calling it life. But life responds instantly when you raise your standards, when you decide that quitting is no longer an option, that excuses are no longer acceptable, that discipline is no longer negotiable, because discipline is not punishment. It's self-respect in action, and every disciplined act sends a signal to your brain that you are someone who can be trusted, someone who finishes, someone who follows through. And the more signals you send, the stronger that identity becomes, and suddenly what used to feel hard becomes normal. What used to feel impossible becomes expected. And what used to intimidate you becomes familiar territory. And that's how transformation actually happens, not in one dramatic moment, but in thousands of small decisions stacked under pressure. And right now, you're standing at a crossroads, whether you admit it or not, because the habits you repeat this month are shaping the life you'll be living next year. And next year turns into 5 years faster than you think. And 5 years turns into regret if you don't wake up now, not tomorrow, not next Monday, not when conditions are perfect. Now, because clarity doesn't come from thinking harder. It comes from committing deeper. And the moment you stop asking, can I, and start declaring, I will, your nervous system aligns, your focus sharpens, and your energy rises. And yes, it will be uncomfortable. Yes, people will misunderstand. Yes, you will outgrow rooms, routines, and relationships, but that's the cost of becoming who you're meant to be. And the price of staying the same is far higher than the price of change, because staying the same slowly erodes your self-respect. And once self-respect is gone, motivation doesn't matter, talent doesn't matter, opportunity doesn't matter. But when self-respect is strong, you move differently, you speak differently, you carry yourself differently, and people feel it before you ever say a word, because energy never lies, and the highest form of confidence isn't loudness or arrogance. It's certainty, certainty built through action, certainty built through integrity with yourself, certainty built by showing up when no one is watching. And if you take anything from this moment, let it be this. Decide once Decide who you are, decide what you tolerate, decide what you no longer accept from yourself, because the world doesn't decide your future. You do, one standard at a time, one habit at a time, one hard choice at a time, and the version of you that you keep imagining isn't waiting for motivation, they're waiting for permission. And you don't need permission, you need a decision. And once that decision is made, once you stop wavering and stop asking for reassurance, something powerful happens inside you that most people never experience. You stop leaking energy. Because indecision is the biggest energy drain on the human system. It fragments focus, weakens posture, dulls urgency, and keeps you stuck in mental noise. But the moment you decide fully and without negotiation, your mind stops arguing and starts executing. And execution is where momentum is born, because momentum doesn't come from thinking big thoughts or watching inspirational videos. It comes from forward motion under resistance, from doing the thing you said you would do even when your emotions are screaming for relief. Because emotions are weather, not truth. They change by the hour or by the minute. And if you let them dictate your behavior, you become a servant to mood instead of a leader of action. And leaders do not wait to feel powerful. They act powerful first and let the feelings catch up later. And this is where most people misunderstand strength, because they think strength is confidence, when in reality, strength is tolerance. The tolerance to stay present in discomfort, the tolerance to delay gratification, the tolerance to feel fear without obeying it, because fear never disappears when you level up, it just changes shape. And the people who win aren't fearless. They're decisive in the presence of fear, and that's a muscle, not a personality trait. A muscle you build by choosing the hard path repeatedly until your nervous system recalibrates and realizes that discomfort is not danger. And once that switch flips, your entire life expands, because suddenly you're willing to make the call, take the risk, have the conversation, do the work, stay late, wake early, push harder. Not because you're chasing validation, but because you're no longer willing to betray yourself. And self-betrayal is a silent killer of potential. It happens every time you say, I'll do it tomorrow, knowing you won't. Every time you lower the standard to match your current behavior instead of raising your behavior to meet a higher standard. And each time you do that, you teach your brain that your word doesn't matter. And a person who doesn't trust their own word will never fully trust themselves with success, because success amplifies who you already are. It doesn't fix you. And if you're inconsistent, success magnifies inconsistency. If you're disciplined, it magnifies discipline. And that why growth demands identity level change, not surface level motivation, because motivation fades, but identity sustains. And the strongest identity you can ever build is the identity of someone who finishes, someone who shows up no matter what, someone who does not negotiate with their future. And understand this clearly, no one is coming to save you. No one is going to hand you clarity, confidence, or courage. Those are built in isolation, in repetition, in the moments where quitting would be easier, but you stay, and staying rewires you. Staying builds grit. Staying builds certainty, and certainty changes how the world responds to you, because people don't follow words, they follow energy, and energy comes from alignment between what you say and what you do. And when those two match, you become dangerous in the best possible way, because you're no longer predictable to your old limitations. You're no longer trapped by your past behavior. And your past does not define you unless you keep repeating it. And repetition is a choice, whether you admit it or not. And yes, you've failed before. Yes, you've started and stopped. Yes, you've doubted yourself. But none of that disqualifies you. It trains you if you let it, because failure only becomes permanent when you attach identity to it. When you say, this is who I am, instead of this is something that happened. And the moment you separate behavior from identity, you regain control, because you realize you can change behavior instantly by changing standards. And standards are enforced through action, not emotion. And the standard you must set above all else is this: I do what I say, because once that becomes non-negotiable, everything else follows. Discipline, confidence, focus, momentum. And momentum compounds faster than talent ever will, because talent without discipline is potential wasted. But discipline without talent still wins over time, because time bends in favor of those who show up consistently. And consistency isn't exciting. It's repetitive. It's boring. It's unglamorous. And that's exactly why it works, because most people quit when excitement fades, but the elite understand that boredom is the gateway to mastery, and mastery creates freedom, and freedom is not comfort, it's control. Control over your time, your energy, your reactions, your future, and control begins the moment you stop blaming circumstances and start owning outcomes, because ownership is power, and power feels heavy at first, because responsibility removes excuses. But once you carry it long enough, it strengthens you, and suddenly you're no longer asking, why is this happening to me? You're asking, what am I going to do about it? And that question alone separates leaders from followers, builders from drifters, creators from consumers. And if you stay on this path, if you keep choosing discipline over comfort, action over hesitation, standards over excuses, you will look back one day and realize the moment everything changed wasn't loud or dramatic. It was quiet, internal, decisive, the moment you stopped negotiating with who you could become and finally stepped forward to claim it. And as you continue forward, something subtle but unstoppable begins to take shape inside you. You stop seeing effort as sacrifice and start seeing it as proof of alignment, proof that your actions finally match the vision you've been carrying quietly for years. Because deep down, you've always known you were capable of more. Not in an arrogant way, but in a restless way, a way that made staying average feel suffocating, even when life looked fine on the outside. And that restlessness was never a flaw, it was a signal, a call to expansion. But signals only matter if you respond to them, and most people don't. They numb them with distraction, entertainment, comparison, comfort, anything to avoid the responsibility of becoming. Because becoming demands consistency, and consistency exposes excuses. And excuses fall apart under repetition, and once excuses collapse, only truth remains. And the truth is this: you are exactly where your habits have taken you. No further and no closer, and the fastest way to change your life is not to wait for clarity, but to move with conviction before clarity arrives. Because clarity follows action the same way confidence follows courage. And courage is not the absence of fear, it is the decision to move forward while fear watches. And every time you do that, you expand your internal limits. You stretch your identity, you prove to yourself that you are not fragile, that discomfort will not destroy you, that pressure can be carried. And once you realize you can carry pressure, you stop running from responsibility and start stepping into it, because responsibility is not a burden. It is leverage. It gives you control, and control is what most people are actually chasing when they say they want happiness, because happiness without control is fragile, temporary, dependent on conditions, but control creates stability, and stability allows growth, and growth fuels fulfillment, and fulfillment comes from progress, not perfection. Progress earned through daily discipline, daily execution, daily recommitment to the standard you set when no one was watching. And understand this: there will be days when your energy is low, your confidence feels distant, and your mind tries to resurrect old stories, but those days are not signals to stop. They are tests of identity, tests asking, are you the person who acts based on feeling or the person who acts based on decision? And every time you choose decision over feeling, you reinforce the version of yourself that cannot be shaken, cannot be talked out of their path, cannot be delayed by temporary discomfort. And this is where real power is built, not in bursts of intensity, but in sustained commitment, because intensity gets attention, but commitment gets results, and results change how you see yourself. And how you see yourself determines what you tolerate, and what you tolerate defines your future. So you must be ruthless with your standards and compassionate with your effort, because discipline without compassion leads to burnout, but compassion without discipline leads to stagnation. And balance is not softness, it is precision, knowing when to push and when to recover without ever quitting. Because quitting teaches your nervous system that escape is an option, and once escape becomes an option, excellence disappears. And this is why you must remove negotiation entirely, not just from big goals, but from small behaviors. Because small behaviors are votes, and those votes compound into identity, and identity compounds into destiny. And destiny is not luck, it is alignment over time, and the more aligned you become, the quieter the noise gets. The clearer your focus becomes, the less external validation you need, because your certainty no longer comes from applause, it comes from integrity. And integrity is power. It allows you to stand alone if necessary, to move forward even when misunderstood, to stay disciplined even when unrecognized, because you're no longer perform. Being for others, you're honoring a promise to yourself, and that promise becomes sacred, unbreakable, non-negotiable. And when you live that way long enough, opportunities start responding to you differently. Not because the world changed, but because you did. Your posture changed, your energy changed, your standards changed. And the world always adjusts to the person with the highest level of certainty in the room. And certainty is built through repetition, not affirmation, and repetition demands patience, and patience is strength disguised as calm, and calm allows precision, and precision accelerates progress, and progress reinforces belief, and belief fuels action, and that cycle, once activated, becomes unstoppable, and you will reach a point where you no longer need speeches like this, because your life itself becomes the message, your discipline becomes the motivation, your consistency becomes the proof, and when that happens, you'll understand that the hardest part was never the work. It was the decision to stop betraying yourself, and that decision, once made, changes everything.